Well, welcome football fans to another edition of the Williamson Herald's Football Extra. And this is, of course, sponsored by Moody's Tire and Auto in Franklin and also one in Cool Springs. They got the two locations there. I want to thank Moody's and Tire for coming back on board with us. And, well, we're without our fearless leader once more. And I don't know, it's a little hot out here.
It is a little warm out here, and maybe it was too warm, especially on this turf.
My name's Charles Pulliam, the multimedia reporter with the Williamson Herald, joined here by Maurice Patton of MoPattonSports.com. And, well, we're just kind of bashing Joe Williams, the sports editor at the Herald, a little bit. Just got to give him a little, right?
Got to. I mean, you know he'd do it to us.
There you go. Joe will be with us next week, of course, but we want to get right into some football here. We're out here at Nolensville. This just a great facility out here, and they're hosting their first and only varsity game of the season this year, coming on Friday.
Yeah, they've got South Gibson coming in from West Tennessee. Talked to Coach Hester just a little bit here as we were getting prepared. South Gibson was a playoff team last season in 3A. Got some talent coming back, particularly senior running back Tyler Dysart, who rushed for over 1,000 yards last year, 17 touchdowns on defense. In the secondary, 77 tackles with a pick, 2 kickoff returns for a touchdown. So they've got a little explosiveness. Came back from a 42-21 deficit last week against Owen County to win 47-42. Don't know whether that was a function of them finally getting things together or Owen not being able to hang on. But again, 47-42 their final there. They're 2-0 coming in here. This game for them replaces Jackson Central Mary on their roster, on their schedule from last year. JCM, as some of you probably know, closed down last year, at the end of last year, in a really tough move by the Jackson-Madison County School Board down there. So a few teams were left kind of grasping at straws in terms of trying to replace some games, and Nolensville was able to pick up a varsity game, and from all indications, this is going to be a pretty big deal out here Friday night.
What do you think it means to a community, to a school coming on board to be able to host a big varsity game like this?
I think it's going to be huge. I think it's going to be exciting out here. I think the atmosphere is just going to be out the door. I'm looking forward to actually coming out here and checking this out, as much for the atmosphere as to see some of these young kids. I'm looking forward to seeing Brandon Wharton Jr., the quarterback, Wesley Miller, some of these guys. I just want to see what they look like in a game setting, and looking forward to watching Will Hester at work once again. So it should be an interesting Friday night, I think, all the way around, both on the field and in the stands.
Nolensville out here, of course, with the brand new school, brand new field, and man, it is something out here.
It really is.
Staying in county, of course, you know, we're coming off a unique schedule here where we had games on Friday and Saturday because the weather, of course, came through and put some reschedules, put some cancellations here. Kind of sum up what we saw on week 2.
Disjointed, maybe. I mean, you saw games not just in the county, but across Middle Tennessee. You saw games that got started on Friday night and didn't get finished. You saw games that got started and finished up on Saturdays. You saw some folks decide to just sit tight and not play at all. And so anyway, yeah, and then you saw folks that just decided to wait until Saturday to play their game. So it was unique. That was the right word for it, I think. It's a very odd situation, kind of like what we just saw.
Yeah. Well, one of those games that was stopped at the half and carried on in the second half on the next day was the Battle of the Woods. Brentwood able to come out, and that was just a different game in the second half. Brentwood rolling past Ravenwood in the Battle of the Woods at Brentwood. And now the Bruins going to be hosting Rossview on Friday night for week 3.
Yeah, starting out their Region 7 5A portion of their schedule, and obviously they're going into it with some momentum. I don't know if anybody expected Brentwood to handle Ravenwood the way they did, 41-10, 31-0 on Saturday after 10-10 at halftime. But you know, I've just thought all along that whatever the Bruins had in them, Ron Crawford was going to get it out of them. Thought he did a masterful job getting that team moving forward every week last year, getting them into the playoffs, picking up a playoff win, and I think they just kind of picked up where they left off. Tough loss down at Independence in the opener, 21-20. Came back, great game plan, Great work by the quarterback Carson Shacklett, and just took control of the Battle of the Woods Saturday night, excuse me.
That was a pretty good game to start off Friday night.
Yeah, Friday night. I think Friday night was obviously a little bit more to Ravenwood's liking than Saturday night was. But we'll get to Ravenwood in a second. But yeah, huge win for Brentwood, I think.
You go down the road a little bit there, and Independence and Centennial, another game that in week 2 started Friday, and then they played almost 3 quarters of football on Saturday night. Independence, the defending 5A champions, able to come out on top of that one at Centennial. And we were at that game, we saw some good things on both sides, really, but Independence looked more balanced out there for sure.
Right. I think Independence was more balanced offensively and defensively, run pass on offense. But I tell you what, I really like Tavion Fleming. Kid's a game breaker. He's something special with the ball in his hands. I think Trey Stewart is going to continue to come on at quarterback for Centennial. They've got some guys that can catch it, like I said, Fleming, Devious Chrisman, Austin Waddell. They've got some options in the passing game. I think John Carter and Zion Lee are going to make a nice little 1-2 punch for them in the run game as well. But talking to Matt Kreisky after that ball game, you know, it's 7-0. Independence has scored. Centennial has driven it from their own 35 down close to the red zone. They're at about the 23-yard line early in the second quarter when the stoppage of play comes on. They come back out, and it's like they've lost that momentum. And I think that's probably – I don't know how many games there were where that type situation took place, but Kreisky said that there was definitely a difference. And obviously, you know, when you're driving like that and you've got some confidence, you feel like you're getting some good things done, and then you have to stop. And then 24 hours later, you come back out and you try to get that back up against a good team. You know, it's a tough situation. They weren't able to convert from there. Independence goes back the other way, scores, makes it 14-0. I mean, that's a 14-point swing right there, and it's tough. And you know, to be fair, Independence is dealing with the same thing, but still, you know, it's just a tough go. And I guess these cameras here just don't mean anything, do they?
We're seeing surrounded by all the kids out here, and yeah, I mean, maybe we're not that obvious, huh? Do we look like we belong, maybe?
Maybe we look like high school students or something.
There we go. That's a good compliment, maybe. Huh?
Yeah, right.
Also in county here, Grace Christian Academy, they had another game, stopped at halftime, came back and lost in a tough one, 34-33 to McEwen. And that was another tale of two halves kind of game. But now they have a Cornersville team coming in there in a region game, so it should be interesting to see how the Lions do.
Absolutely, and they've got a Cornersville team coming in that is 0-2 so far. They've lost a couple of tough ones, lost 8-7 to Collinwood last weekend. I think this is a game that probably Rusty Smith and that group kind of circle as a potential win or a must-win type situation here, especially, again, opening up Region 4 1A play. So this is a big one for them at home.
Page hosting as well. They get another good battle. That yearly date with Spring Hill coming into town.
Yeah, big Region 4 4A game for them. Page obviously coming off the no contest against Lipscomb last week. Lost 13-10 out at Fairview in their opener. So I'm sure they're chomping at the bit to get back out there. And against a Spring Hill team that they beat 38-20 last year. Spring Hill with a new coach down there, Jay Emmons, former Centennial assistant. And a guy at quarterback will be a familiar name to county folks as well. Blake Lovell, who played at Centennial last year. Justin Oden, nice receiver for them. I think Spring Hill's got a little firepower. They pretty well handled McGavock this past weekend, 47-15. So I think Page is going to have their hands full.
Yeah, you think the Patriots just got a quarter in roughly in week 2, so chomping at the bit for sure.
Absolutely.
Another in-county game, the last one actually staying in Williamson County, Battleground Academy, is going to be hosting St. Benedict of Auburndale, a struggling team actually coming to visit.
They're struggling, but at the same time, you got to realize this is a small Division II AA school. Their first 2 games were both against Class 6A programs, Collierville and Germantown. They lost them both 45-0. But I think they'll be getting a little bit closer in terms of roster size and that kind of thing to themselves. So they're going to kind of come in here feeling like, okay, this is a chance for us to pick one up. But you got to like what BGA has done so far, particularly in that 38-7 win over Friendship Christian on Saturday night. 400-plus offensive yards. Both quarterbacks, Drew Martin and Jake Holloway, did some good things. And Kel Hawkins as well, showing some explosiveness for them.
A couple games going on just outside of county. I want to first start off at Overton, where we got a nice matchup going to town there. And what do you see from that one?
You know, Overton jumped out with a big win against Stewart's Creek in their opener. Turned around, went down to Lewisburg Friday. Well, they went down to Lewisburg Friday night, then they went back on Saturday night and took a 33-19 loss. But I think that this kind of will be a tale of two running games. Overton with Theo Jackson and their tailbacks Tavarius Travis and Tyrone Sanders, they're probably going to stay a little bit more ground-oriented. Obviously, Franklin, as we've seen in their first two games, with Mitch Rossi going over 100 in each of his first two games, they're going to be real ground-oriented behind those linemen with Caden Williams and Max Ray. Those guys are huge.
They really are. The intimidation factor, getting off the bus, you name it, everything. Those guys are just big dudes.
They really are. But I think you're going to see Franklin get to their power game, try to shorten the game, try to keep the ball away from Overton speed guys. So interesting difference in styles there, I think. They're both going to want to run the game, but they're doing it in two different ways, I think. And this is a big matchup for Franklin from the standpoint that they lost this game 41-20 last year, coming out of a big win over Riverdale. So they are predicted to do some damage in Region 3-6A. They really need to stand up and make a statement on the road in this ball game, I think.
Coach Johnny Woodman, the Rebels, winning at Murfreesboro at Riverdale there in week 2, and actually had a great start and kind of let the guys come back into it there, and the Warriors threatened late.
Yeah, kind of reminiscent of that week 1 game against Centennial where they got up 24-14 late and gave up the 2 touchdowns in the last minute and a half or so. And in fact, I talked to Donnie over the weekend, and that was kind of what he said. A little tongue-in-cheek, but not a lot. So we tried to give this one away late too. But so obviously that's something that's going to be a coaching point this week, you would think, being able to finish folks off. And again, this is an Overton team that if you let them hang around, they've got some playmakers that they can do some damage late in a situation like that. So if Franklin is able to get their foot on Overton's throat, they need to be able to keep it there. And I think that's going to be a key for the Rebel coaching staff this week is, pushing that, finish these guys off, finish them, So.
We talked Battle of the Woods here earlier in this Moody's Tire and Auto Football Extra, and Ravenwood going to have to bounce back and go right into a tough game at Mt Juliet where we talked big guys. There's some big guys there.
Oh, absolutely. That's kind of where you have to start the conversation for Mt Juliet is with those 2 huge offensive linemen, DJ Delfendahl, who is about 6'2", 280, and he's the little guy.
Yeah.
Because Justin Satterfield is like 6'7", 310. So,
the little guy at 6'2", 280.
Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, when you start with those 2 guys up front, you kind of know the ball is coming downhill a lot. And Mt Juliet's got a couple of guys that can run it. Marcelo Walton and Terrence Watkins. They're number 28 and 29, so it gets pretty confusing pretty quick. But Mason Earls does a good job with the run game at quarterback for them. So it's going to be a run-oriented offense that Ravenwood is going to see, and I'm interested to see how they handle that. They gave up some yards in their opener against Siegel in a 23-19 win. They were eventually able to throw the ball around enough to put that one away. McCain Marrow wound up throwing for a school record 420 yards and a couple of touchdowns in the fourth quarter. Weren't quite able to get that done in the Battle of the Woods this weekend against Brentwood. Notice I said this weekend and not Friday or Saturday. But they're going to be challenged, and being able to maintain the ball against a Mt Juliet defense and keeping it away from that power run game that Mt Juliet has is going to be their challenge, I think.
Summit going to go ahead and travel to Shelbyville. The Spartans at 1-1 got that first win of the season in week 2.
Yeah, big win for them on the road up at Clarksville Northwest. Be nice to see them turn around and build on that against a Shelbyville team that went over to the Brickyard in Pulaski and picked up a big win against Giles County. So this is a big Region 5-5A matchup for both those teams, I think, because again, Summit trying to improve on last year's 4-6 finish. A lot of guys back from that team, including a Ty Carter and some of those other guys. Shelbyville with a new head coach down there trying to build something as well and keep up with the tradition that they've built over the last few years. So quietly, this is a pretty big matchup, I think.
Independence coming off that win at Centennial. They're going to be traveling to Lincoln County on the road again.
Exactly. Going down to the pit, and it'll be a physical ball game because that's kind of what Lincoln County does. They hit you, and I'll be interested to see, now that there's some film out, how well Troy Henderson is able to run against a loaded box like they're going to see against Lincoln County. This is a kid who's rushed for almost 200 yards and 5 touchdowns in Independence's first 2 games. Don Thomas is a defensive guy, the head coach down at Lincoln County, former All-American linebacker over at MTSU. He's going to load the box and make them throw the ball. And if Brandon Hines can make enough plays in the passing game, I think Independence will be okay. The receiving core is starting to come along. TJ Sheffield is out there making plays. The UT commitment, Kendrell Scurry, caught a big pass for a touchdown against Centennial. And even without Owen Murphy and Montre Steele, they still got enough playmakers in the passing game to get some things done. And we've not mentioned Landon Guidry yet.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, you know, they've got some guys that if you stack the box to try to take Henderson away, they can back you out of it if they can hit on some of those passes. And Andrew Bunch isn't walking through that door. I was having that conversation with some folks on the sideline the other night. It's like, I think if you're an Independence fan, you're watching Brandon Hines now and you're seeing a good high school quarterback, but you've seen a great high school quarterback the last 2 years, and there's a little bit of a difference. I mean, Andrew just put the ball in some windows that you don't see many high school quarterbacks put the ball in. And Brandon's getting there, but he's not there yet. So it's going to take some patience on some folks' part. But this is an interesting matchup, I think, just because Lincoln County is so physical and they've got the opportunity to kind of slow the game down a little bit.
And we talked to Scott Blade after that Centennial win, and he's talking about how he sees Hines being able to do a lot of those things, but right now Troy's been really the guy that's bailed him out of a lot of situations.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, they're even getting creative with him and putting him out in the slot and that kind of thing, getting him out in the passing game. And he's a guy who, in space, can really hurt you. 5'11", 170, a junior, rushed for almost 1,000 yards up in Louisville last year. So he's got some talent and meshes really well with that offense. But they're a little bit more run-oriented right now than we've gotten used to seeing them be the last couple of years.
We'll look at Fairview here as well. The Yellow Jackets going to open up their, what is that, Region 6-3A?
6-3A.
Yeah, 6-3A at Stewart's County. There we go. Trying to get it all out.
Yep, they're
There's
going.
so many games.
Yeah. Thanks, Joe. Going up to Dover for this matchup again. Fairview off to a 2-0 start and gone 180 from last year when they started off 0-2 with losses to Page and to Creekwood. They got the big win off the foot of Jeffrey Perez in that opener, 13-10. Turned around and beat Creekwood last week, 38-13. So they're rolling. Chris Hughes feels pretty good about his sophomore quarterback, Cam Harris-Lusk, taking their act on the road. Again, big region opener here and want to continue the momentum that they've got.
Brentwood Academy coming off a nationally recognized game up in Louisville playing against that powerhouse in Trinity and coming up a little short in that one, and now they're going to bounce back and try to get a W at Pope John Paul II.
Pope John Paul II coming off a huge win themselves, defeated Coffee County and Tennessee commitment Alonte Taylor 54-30. Got a big performance out of Ben Brooks at quarterback. And also a running back by the name of Drew Bledsoe. You're kind of used to that being a quarterback. But Bledsoe had a big game for him. And Chris Bell is a guy on the defensive side of the ball back there at safety that the Eagles have to account for, I think. Jeremiah Oatsfall, big game against Trinity, threw for 182 yards and a touchdown, rush for another 98 yards and a touchdown, including a 71-yarder. And obviously, he's kind of where it all starts for them on offense. Again, Cameron Johnson and Daniel Taylor, the two receivers. But Brentwood Academy is going to be obviously looking to bounce back after that tough loss on the road. this was the only game they lost last year on the way to that Division II AA state championship. So you got to feel pretty good about them being able to bounce back on the road against JP2, I think.
23 state championships, that Trinity team.
Yeah, that's kind of getting it
wow.
done.
Yeah.
I mean, that's obviously they're heads and shoulders ahead of everybody else up there. And I think it's great for Brentwood Academy to go and play somebody like that, or to have a series against somebody like that where you can test yourself, find out what you're about, and it doesn't really affect what you're trying to get done in terms of your long-term goals. Yeah, you can learn from a loss, or maybe you can learn from a win, but you can learn something and it doesn't hurt you. So again, kudos to Cody White and that staff for taking this game on, and hopefully they'll continue this series, because I think it generates a lot of excitement on both ends in this area and up in Louisville, because they know what Brentwood Academy is about as well.
Very busy week 3. That wraps it up here for the Williamson Herald Football Extra, of course sponsored by Moody's Tire and Auto. Gosh, going to be very busy come Friday, and hopefully we don't have anything to do on Saturday too. Hopefully.
You know, with this being the start of college football season, if we have any Saturday night games, they might not get covered.
For Maurice Patton, myself, Charles Pulling, we thank you for listening, and we'll see you at a ball game.